Let's just start with, a little bit about your background, your responsibility, and really what is an executive director of the North Carolina State Port Authority? What do they do, and what is the responsibility?
Excellent. So again, first off, nice meeting you. Appreciate the opportunity. So I've been with the State Ports Authority for about 4 years now, a little over 4 years. Joined in June of 2017, originally as a chief operating officer. My career has been in the maritime industry for about 25 years at this point in time. Graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Spent about 22 years working in the private sector for the AP Moller Maersk Group. Maersk Line is the largest shipping line in the world. I worked in their terminal operations side for their division called APM Terminals, mainly in the U.S., mainly in New York, New Jersey, but spent a little bit of time in Baltimore and a little bit of time down in Mobile, Alabama. 2 stints up in New Jersey. So had the opportunity to join the State Ports Authority down here, as I said, in 2017. And as of January 1st of this past year, was promoted to the executive director's position. So my responsibility is to manage the business and to support the operation of the Port of Wilmington and the Port of Morehead City. And we have an inland port in Charlotte that's connected by rail between here and between Wilmington and Charlotte.
How big is this port compared to maybe Long Beach or Los Angeles? Because
significantly smaller. It's not even on the same scale. I think I'm seeing those West Coast ports are projected to handle 20 million TEUs or whatever the number was I just saw. We just handled a record number of volume last year on the container side. It was about 330,000 TEUs. So even if you look at the East Coast, the Port of New York, New Jersey, the Port of Savannah are significantly larger, 6.5, 7 million TEUs of cargo up in New York, New Jersey. What we do extremely well, we serve a number of customers, not just on the container side, but also on the general cargo side. So our Port of Morehead City is fully dedicated to bulk and break bulk cargo. And about 200 of our 300 acres here in Wilmington is dedicated to break bulk and bulk cargo as well. So,
okay. Can you talk a little bit about the complexity?
Sure. Certainly, it's a complex operation. What's unique here in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia is we are known as what is known as operating ports. So in most of the other gateways, the Port Authority is the landlord. They lease the space to a tenant. The tenant operates the facility. What's unique in these 3 states is that part of the operation is actually conducted by state employees. So my employees operate the ship-to-shore cranes. They operate the heavy equipment in the yards, and then they operate the gates. And then the balance of the operation is done by third parties, whether they're tenants, stevedoring companies, the International Longshoremen's Association. So that's one unique facet of our operation here, is that we do have this operating role. And at the end of the day, there's a number of ships that are being loaded or unloaded or both. It's the efficient handling and safe handling of that cargo to its place of rest, and then ultimate delivery of that cargo out the gate into whatever means it's departing or arriving the facility. As you said, it can be both rail and truck. So it's a coordination amongst a number of stakeholders to be as efficient and cost effective as possible.
So what is your definition of blue economy? There's a lot of definitions out there, but when you think about it today or into the future, what is your definition?
Sure. Admittedly, it's one of those things that it's something new from a terminology standpoint, and I've worked closely in the last couple of years with UNCW, and I've learned a little bit more about it. But I guess in layman's terms, it's the sustainable use of the ocean or the waters to support the economy and the way of life in a particular region. So that's my thoughts about it.
So, and then when you think about, when you think about that concept, why is that important, especially to a port authority and what you do in your planning or kind of strategy making?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, everything moving in and out of our ports moving by water. So it's important that we're good stewards of the environment, we're good neighbors, that we support, obviously, not just the economy of the state by supporting the movement of cargo efficiently and effectively, but it's also making sure that our operations, our business doesn't have a negative impact on others that rely so much. I think about it down here in this region or from Morehead City. Obviously, it's a tourist area. That's a very important component of the local economy. There's businesses that enjoy the benefits of the beaches and the rivers and the waterways. So we want to be good neighbors. And as we plan for the future and the growth that we aspire to achieve, it's making sure that we can live cohesively with all these other stakeholders.
How has that changed since you've been leading the organization since 2017? How has that changed, especially since 2017? There's a lot more conversation around climate change and its impact, or just even kind of the commercialization behavior of individuals. And how is that thinking of that good stewardship really kind of played into your operations or into your long-term planning?
I don't necessarily think it's changed. I joined the organization in 2017, but certainly the leadership that was in place, prior to, had to focus on growing the business, and supporting. Ultimately, our mission is to support the economy of the state by being a more efficient means of moving cargo in and out of the state. Today, a lot of cargo that, I get in my commercial hat, a lot of the cargo that moves in and out of North Carolina actually moves through other ports on the East Coast. So it adds to, the cost of moving that cargo. It adds to potential environmental impact. And by making the investments we've made here and increasing our capabilities, our goal is to attract more of that natural cargo through our ports and ultimately, decrease the cost of doing business. We've made investments to be able to handle larger vessels. The industry has seen a rapid increase in the size of the ships that the carriers are actually utilizing to benefit from economies of scale. And so the investments were really geared towards making sure that we can continue to support these ever-growing vessel sizes. With that comes challenges, obviously, bigger equipment. We dredged a turning basin. We raised wires over the river. Ultimately, longer term, it's a desire to actually have the channel deepened in the river to support these larger ships. So all of that plays into the importance of the environment and making sure that we can coexist with the other stakeholders.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, you said that a lot of the goods come from other ports and then to Wilmington. So they have a stop somewhere else and then they come to Wilmington.
So the way, in the container side, the bulk and break bulk's a little unique, but on the container side, there are services that run from the foreign ports to the U.S. ports. They might call a service that calls here in Wilmington, might also call New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Savannah. And, what our goal is to grow the amount of volume that's actually coming off those vessels in Wilmington, or the number of services that actually come to our port. Today, we handle 7 weekly container services, and some of these larger ports might handle, 40, 50, even more different services from around the world. A lot of the volume that's moving in and out of the state today is coming from regions around the world that we might not have services to. So it's easier for that cargo to be unloaded, say, in Virginia, and then trucked down into the North Carolina market.
Okay. So I hear a lot of things, opportunities for like new partnerships, or there's probably technology opportunities because you're going to have increased security concerns. And and I'm just making these up.
Sure.
I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about if you put yourself 10 years from now and you're running the port, what does it look like, and what did you do today on forward to get it to that point to be successful?
I mean, obviously, to achieve our mission, it's to grow the volume, the share of volume that we're handling through the port. With that, we've made the investments in the equipment. Certainly technology is going to be a piece of it, to make sure that, once the cargo comes off, we need to be able to handle it as efficiently as possible. One of our goals in growing the volume is to make sure that the service levels that we are able to deliver our customers today, the turnaround time for a ship in port is extremely important. It needs to be as quick as possible. And same thing for the trucks or the trains, depending on which means the cargo is leaving, needs to be as short as possible. And as volumes grow, really that's driven by technology, to make sure that it remains as efficient as possible. I certainly see that being a key to the future. Continued investment in the latest technology, communications platforms, to ensure that stakeholders are notified in real time as cargo arrives and it's available, or when trucks arrive and depart, to make sure that we're prepared to deliver their service.
So as you move to this kind of expansion and grow the volume, what is the pushback? Is there any pushback from other local communities around, hey, we don't really want that business here. There's concern, our sleepy little area is going to be disrupted. I don't know what kind of things might be out there, but is there any kind of pushback from potential communities that should be partners rather than, adversary?
I'm not aware of any pushback. I believe that the local community sees, both here and in Morehead City, sees the value of the ports to the state and the state's economy. As volumes grow or vessel calls increase, certainly there's a concern, the perception that perhaps traffic will increase or it'll negatively impact the way of life. But ultimately, I think I know a lot of people in the state depend on what we provide as a service, and are supportive of seeing the growth.
So what about the people aspect, the workforce aspect? Is there, kind of talk to me about the spectrum of needs that you have, because some of these things are probably pretty high tech on one side, but then there's, on the other side, it's possibly just muscle